This week, we learned about mandatory minimum penalties in the federal criminal justice system. We also learned about wrongful convictions, and then we learned about the aftermath of those wrongful convictions. First, we read about the overview of mandatory penalties and how they have been around since the beginning of the nation. With these, there has been sentencing guidelines that best follow the Sentencing Reform Act. Now, Congress enacted its power to make sentencing policy that follows about three guidelines. The first is that it cannot be excessively severe. Two, it can be narrowly tailored to the offenders who warrant the punishment. And three, all of these punishments have to be applied consistently. Next, we watched a documentary about the aftermath of wrongful convictions. Now, in this, we could see clearly how it has ruined people's lives and how it has caused a distrust in the whole criminal justice system. With that, you can clearly see that it had negative impact on these people. But because of all this aftermath and because of all these consequences that our nation has faced with wrongful convictions, the National Institute of Justice has dedicated using science to learn about the causes and the consequences of these and hope to minimize these wrongful convictions and to just help support these victims and to help bring true justice to our nation. Lastly, for the discussion of this week, we were able to find our own case of where someone was wrongfully convicted. I looked up one, and it was on this man named Kirk Bloodsworth, who was wrongly convicted for the rape and murder of a 22-year-old girl. Now, he was locked up for 9 years, and it didn't come... He thought he was a lost hope, but eventually he read into the study of DNA testing. So he was able to get the prosecution to get those tests done, and it came out that none of his DNA was on the girl that died. And because of that, after 9 years of being in prison, locked up, and even facing the death penalty for 2 of those years, it came that he was wrongfully convicted and he was released. Now, that just goes to show that DNA testing is so important and critical in cases nowadays. I think with that, it's just one small step to making sure that we don't ever have wrongful convictions again. Because I think that in order for someone to be convicted of something as serious as this kind of crime, there needs to be physical DNA evidence that locks them in as the suspect or the offender.